My name is May Hong. I am the speaking voice of Mira from K-pop Demon Hunters, and this is Moana Nui podcast. Signing off. Happy fans. Do it with me. Happy fans. Happy Hon.
Good evening, people. Happy Black History Month.
Indeed, happy Black History Month. In fact,
because I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blackity black, and I'm black, y'all. If y'all never saw CB4, it is a canon in American Black history, and you should see the movie. Yeah. Matter of fact, a lot of people that don't understand what rap music used to be and what it turned into could honestly benefit from watching CB4 and understanding how we ended up here.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
Satirical as it is, painfully true.
Satire is just sarcasm and truth. Right? So tonight on this episode of THIStory during Black History Month on a Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever day it is, it don't matter. Because you know what we're doing? We're doing Rebels. We're not doing your regular, I have a dream. We marched and we, changed the world, Black history. We're doing F the police type of Black history today. There will not be a story that is shared that will make non-Black people comfortable. All of this is, oh my God, all of it, every little bit. And I also want to preemptively say that every story we share, I support every one of these people. And the more we talk about it, I think you'll come to support them as well.
Indeed.
Yes. So we're going to start off with, who do you want to start with, James? Oh, wait, you know what? We didn't even introduce ourselves. Hello, I am Joy Stevens. I am your most verbal host of THIStory, and I'm here with my co-host, James.
I'm James.
That is James.
Also known as Miles Simmons on the social medias outside of Facebook. So.
Right. And I'm known as Joyride08 everywhere that I want you to find me. So there's that. Yeah. But this energy, we're giving this energy all day.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Right here.
Oh, yes.
So with that being said, you know what? I was gonna go, hey, what's going on, Blurography? Welcome. I was gonna go in a little bit of order, but James, you tell me who you want to start with and we'll go from there.
You know what? We can go with let me check my banners here. Let's start with Denmark Vesey.
All right. Denmark Vesey. Let's talk about it. As a matter of fact, I'm glad we started with him because right now we are in an era where people just be wilding out and you don't know who you can trust. So let's talk about, Denmark Vesey, he was a carpenter and a religious leader. He was in Charleston, South Carolina. So much Black history happens in North and South Carolina, but he was in Charleston, South Carolina, and he planned a slave revolt. He was a free person. He was a free Black carpenter in Charleston. And so he had his right to freedom, but he, in typical community fashion, he couldn't stand to see his brethren still enslaved. So he was planning a slave revolt. 1822, right? So this is 2 generations before the end of slavery, 1822. Unfortunately, you can't be telling everybody to plan.
No.
Right? So what happened was, matter of fact, he was born in, I want to say the West Indies. He was born in the late 1700s. So, there it is, 1776. He was born a year after this country was founded, but it was in the Danish West Indies. And he was brought to Charleston, South Carolina. Then he won a lottery. And that's how he gained his freedom. Not the lottery, but in order for sometimes for white people to feel better about the nonsense they be doing, they'll say, well, we'll pick lots, little, metal things like almost looking like dog tags. And if your name gets pulled, you get to be free. And he won, right? Which led him to becoming a community leader. He became a AME church member and ultimately a minister. And then when this is one of the reasons the Haitian Revolution is not taught in the United States. And it's one of the reasons that America as a country never really recognized Haiti as the first predominantly Black free country in the Western Hemisphere because they didn't want to admit the power that those Black people had. So Denmark Vesey was inspired by the Haitian Revolution, and he wanted to lead a slave uprising in Charleston. And he planned it. They were going to set some fires. They were going to get some weapons. Get the guns, get the people, and let's be out. And then they were going to sail to Haiti. Let's go be with the other free people. It was a great plan. They wasn't trying to free everybody. They was trying to free some local people, get everybody we can get, and be out. Now, his rebellion was betrayed by a Black person.
No.
A slave person sold him out.
Wow,
This
bro.
is why Harriet Tubman, that's why we always say don't argue with people that Harriet Tubman would have shot. You can't be telling everybody the plan. And this person should have been shot. He thought he was going to help this. Can you imagine thinking that you're going to help somebody get to freedom and live a different life in a different country where everybody looks like them and stop their oppression, and all they can do is think, well, Master going to be mad and I'm going to tell. That's pretty much what happened. And he was hung on July 2nd.
This is why snitches get stitches.
Snitches get stitches. So now there is a what do you call it? The picture we're showing is a statue of him that is in South Carolina because of what he tried to do, right? Mm-hmm. But it was one of the things, like, between that and another person we're going to talk about, that really got white folks scared for real. Because they realized there were a lot more slave rebellions than are in the books. This one made the books. Nat Turner, who we're going to talk about in a second, he made the books. A couple others made the books, but there were hundreds of slave rebellions. And there were a couple times where slaves didn't even rebel. Master just ended up dead. We don't know what happened.
Must have been something they ate. Please understand that I most likely would have been Master's illegitimate daughter, forced to, serve my sisters and brothers and whatnot in the kitchen. I'd have poisoned all of them. You cannot send me to jail for a thought, but I absolutely would have poisoned everybody that I could. And and sometimes you got to think about the medicine back then. You didn't even have to really go like strychnine or like belladonna. You could just feed them old chicken. Yeah. Unpasteurized milk. Mm-hmm. Or like your girl from The Help, feed them a chocolate pie. That would have done it. Woo!
Yeah. So pour one out, R.I.P. Denmark Vesey, betrayed for trying to do something right. And like I said, I stand with him. He was trying to do the right thing. Rules don't always make sense when they lead to the oppression of one set of people. And so even though the rules say they're slaves and you shouldn't help them and blah, 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 and if they escape, you need to bring them back. All of that is against human rights. Mm-hmm. Everything about chattel slavery is human rights violations. So he is a freedom fighter. And I stand with him. Yes, we stand with Denmark Vesey.
I want to address this comment real quick. Understand that currently, right now, the majority of the world is people of color.
Yeah.
So whether you want to say mixed or non-white, that's what the majority of the world is. And I'm not talking about like a slight majority of 55-45. It's closer to like 65-35 right now.
70% of the world is persons of color. Right. And then even in the United States, which outside of Great Britain or outside of the UK, the largest concentration of white people is in the United States, just because it depends on if you count Russians. And if you do, you can't count all of them because Russia does lead right on into Mongolia and China. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the United States is now 55% of the babies being born right now are babies of color. Mm-hmm. So in, we'll call it 20 years, the United States would be majority brown. And there's no getting away from it and no getting around it. Because ever since, matter of fact, the reason my skin color is the way it is because at some point in the distant past, because both my parents are Black, but this skin comes from somewhere. In the distant past, somebody couldn't keep it to themselves, couldn't keep their hands off. And so once it became legal for interracial marriage, that one decision, I would say, marked the rapid demise of white as a purist type of race. So it may not matter, not because people won't still be racist, but it may flip. And that's exactly what so many white supremacists are afraid of, is that one day we're going to be the majority in this country and treat them the way they treated us. The funny thing is, we've never treated them the way we treated us. We might make fun of the fact that you can't dance and you don't have any seasoning on your food, but we never try to stop you from getting a job or killed you in the street for being on the street. We don't
get a loan for buying a house.
Yeah, get a loan, buy a house. If anything, y'all kick us out of different places. And I'm saying y'all, not the person that made the comment, just like white folks, kick you out of places and then want to come to where they left you. You know, get over here. You can only live in this area, and then come through that area, slumming, as they call it, wanting to hang out in our clubs, eat up our food, have sex with our people, and then roll back to their side of town, but then act like we're, you know what? I'm off on a tangent. I didn't mean to get off.
I'm about to say, because you're traveling right now, you're probably in work mode.
I'm in work mode, and I'm exhausted because I've been traveling a lot over the last 2 weeks. This is the 5th city I've been in the last 2 weeks.
Oh.
So anyway, going back to the next person. Who do we have next?
Let's go ahead and kick it with Nat Turner, since you already mentioned him.
Nat M.F.N. Turner. So a lot of people know about Nat Turner. And if you saw the movie Birth of a Nation, I really liked the thought of the movie. I will say I didn't watch it because I did feel like the guy that put it together absolutely did what they accused him of doing when he was in college. I believe that. So I just didn't watch the movie. But the story of Nat Turner is great. And if you got a chance to watch Birth of a Nation, I like the way that the guy who put the movie together called it that, because before that, Birth of a Nation was an extremely racist movie from like 1914 that was funded by the Klan, and it showed the Klan chasing down a black man who had tried to accost a white woman. Of course, the guy's in blackface. There's a white guy in blackface, and the whole movie was about catching this evil, hypersexual black man who tried to accost a white woman's virtue and killing him. That's the movie. But Nat Turner, the other movie, Birth of a Nation, now is about the slave uprising that Nat Turner led. And again, this was inspired, if you will, by the Haitian Revolution. Now, there's a lot to know when it comes to Nat Turner. So again, carpenter and a preacher. And remember, Jesus was also a carpenter and a preacher. Then Mark Vesey was a carpenter and a preacher. Interesting parallels there, if you will. How long do you think the uprising lasted?
Ooh, probably about 8 to 10 months.
No, 4 days.
Oh, snap.
4 days of rebellion, and they murdered 55 white men, women, and children. Now, the children were not on purpose. It's, burning a building and there's a kid inside, or you didn't know. The women were on purpose, though, because F them too, and the white men. But it wasn't like, equal percentages. There was a couple of kids, several women, and maybe like 45 white men. At the same time, 120 black women, men, and children were not involved in the revolt, but they were killed by soldiers and local mobs in retaliation. So Nat Turner set about trying to free people in a violent way. And again, I stand with Nat Turner, because you shouldn't have been enslaving people in the first place. I should have a right to fight for my own freedom. And if it gets bloody, you could have just let us go.
Could have.
We had to do all this. You could have just said, you know what, this is wrong, you're free. But you decided that you were going to hold my people. And so we're going to get free, hook or crook. And it happened in, what was it? I'm looking for the date. 1831. Again, about a generation before slavery ended. Because, you think about 1831, 1865, that's 34 years. And considering that people used to have kids in their teens, that's 2 generations, roughly. He was executed in November of 1831. He was captured in October. And before he was executed, he was able to dictate his story to Thomas Gray. And he published the Confessions of Nat Turner in November of 1831, right after he was executed.
Okay.
And in 2002, Nat Turner was included on the list of 100 greatest African Americans for leading the slave revolt, because it showed what was possible. You're talking about people who could barely read, or enslaved because he wasn't free at the time. He had a chance to be a carpenter. They let him they would pimp him out to other people and whatnot. So he had skills, but the desire to just be free. Him and Denmark Vesey. And Denmark was a free person, but wanted his other people to be free. This desire for freedom. We talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can't be happy if you are oppressed. And so, and it's stealing your life because life expectancy was very short. And so they were fighting for humanity, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so, hey, look, it got a little bloody, but it is what it is. Y'all shouldn't have been having slaves. That's on you. Right?
You did this to yourself.
You did this to yourself. All right. Who do we have next?
Let's hit up. Let's see. Who do I have here? Florence Flo Kennedy.
Okay. So this is somebody I'm just finding out about as I was doing research for this show. Flo Kennedy. She's an Aquarius.
Oh.
Yep. Born February 11th, 1916. And she didn't die until 2000. She was December 21st, 2000. Okay. She was a lawyer. She was a civil rights advocate, a lecturer, an activist, and she was a radical feminist. So, this whole idea of the feminist movement that white women have taken over, guess who started it?
Yeah.
Florence Kennedy started it. So she, of course, because she was born in 1916, she was an adult and lived through the Great Depression. She grew up in a poor white neighborhood. They didn't care about redlining if everybody was broke, right? But poverty in the Great Depression. Her father was a Pullman porter. So as far as well-off Black people, she came from middle-class Black, if not upper-class Black, because the Pullman porters were some of the most organized and some of the most well-paid Black laborers of the day. Because remember, we were kept out of most unions. But if your dad was a Pullman porter, y'all had loot, But they lived in the area where the Klan used to run through there all the time. Dad was always armed with a shotgun. And they also were her and her siblings were instilled with this idea of they're not better than you, and you have a right to defend yourself. And so if you look at this picture of her, pull up that picture of her again.
I'm going back to it. There you go.
This is the energy I want for all of us all the time, right? Before Cowboy Carter, there was Florence Kennedy, right? Shooting the middle finger with a smile and a beautiful gap tooth smile at that. I love her energy in this, with the unk around her neck, like you can't tell her nothing. And that's what I want for all Black women. You can't tell me nothing. Right. So when I talk about the feminist movement, she left Missouri, she left the South, went up to New York, went to college, moved in an apartment in Harlem with her sister, went to Columbia University. So studied pre-law, became a lawyer, all the things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
She was an actress for a little while, but that's not that big of a deal. But her activism. So there was a book by Cherie Randolph called Florence Kennedy, The Life of a Radical Black Feminist. And it quotes Florence Kennedy as saying, my main message is that we have a pathologically, institutionally racist, sexist, and classist society. And there's a couple words here I'm not going to say, but the techniques that are used don't only damage Black people, but they also damage women, gay people, ex-prison inmates, prostitutes, children, old people, handicapped people, Native Americans. And if we can begin to analyze the pathology of oppression, we can learn how to deal with it. Now, this was written 50 years ago, if not more, right? And she already was living, working as an intersectional activist. It wasn't just women's rights. It wasn't just Black civil rights. It wasn't just rights of disabled people. It was everybody. Everybody that's oppressed doesn't need to be oppressed. And we can figure out how to stop the systematic and institutional oppression of everybody, then everybody can be free, right?
Yeah, I can see where the pushback came from.
Yes. Yes, lots and lots of pushback. But she is actually the founder of what we now call, like I said, the radical feminist movement. Feminism as an institution or as a concept has its start with her. A lot of people don't think about her. She used to. So a lot of people know Gloria Steinem. And she used to lecture and go around with Gloria Steinem. So a lot of the things, and Shirley Chisholm, she founded the Feminist Party, and that's the party that nominated Shirley Chisholm for president.
Yes. I do remember that.
Mm-hmm. So she's a badass. She was badass her whole life.
In every sense of the word.
In every sense of the word. She was a big force. She was everything that the liberal left thinks they are now, but just they watered it down. She was supporting abortion rights back in the mid 50s, right? And continued to support it until the day that she died. Okay. All right. Who do we have next?
Next, let's hit up Assata Shakur.
Assata Shakur. Now, do you want to start this one, or do you want me to begin it?
You can start. The part I'm going to interject with can wait till the end.
Okay. So this is something else I didn't find out until I got deeper into Assata Shakur's history. I remember this lyric from a Public Enemy song. Something Dakota, supporter of Chesimard. And I never really knew who Chesimard was. And I was young, so I never bothered to look it up. Her name was Joanne Chesimard. That's her original name. So that's who they're talking about in that Public Enemy song. But she changed her name to Assata Shakur. And she was a member of the BLA, the Black Liberation Army. And to mind you, this is in the 60s, right? And I'm going to get this straight so I don't talk about it again. Assata Shakur is not Tupac Shakur's mother. She is his godmother, though. Afeni Shakur is Tupac's mother. And her and Assata were friends. They were really good friends. And so she did have a hand in shaping a young Tupac's, ideology and life and et cetera, et cetera. But just going down through, there's so much that she has done that it's hard to just, I'm scrolling through her Wikipedia. There's so much she was done, but
there's a lot.
So she was what she's most famous for, unfortunately, though, is that she is was a fugitive from the law. Here's the thing, though. The big thing that happened was that she had a shootout with the cops in New Jersey on the New Jersey Turnpike. They got stopped. It was a BS stop, as tends to be, right, in the 60s. And so she got stopped. They had it out, ended up in a shootout, and a cop was killed, her and a few other people. A cop was killed. She was injured. Another cop was injured. She got caught. She went to jail for murder, and she got out. And she got out because the Black Liberation Army and a few other people helped her escape from prison. And then she went to Cuba, and Cuba was like, girl, whatever, come on down here. Vámonos. And she ended up spending the rest of her life in Cuba, and Cuba would never send her back to the United States. Never. Right. And you think about propaganda. I know I was taught when I was young that Cuba was this terrible place with a fascist dictator government, and they were the worst. And then as I got older, I was like, but they protected Assata Shakur, though. What's really going on? And then you discover that it's not anything that you were taught in school. You were taught that way because America has been a propaganda machine for generations, since its inception, actually. And they wanted you to believe that Cuba was bad, and that Cuba was the devil, and that Cuba was evil, and that Castro was terrible. But then you go to Cuba, and people was like, nah, he's all right. He got his issues, but I mean, he's cool. Anyway, she stayed down there for the rest of her life. But she was a member of the Black Panther Party, but only briefly. She really was. That was before she became a member of the Black Liberation Army, and that's where she spent most of her time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What did you want to add?
So I'm gonna read this quick excerpt from her autobiography, and if the cover looks beat up, it's because this book I've had for damn near 30 years. All right. So I read this when I was in college in the late 90s. Don't ask me what year, but this is how jacked up the trial was, especially with the prosecution on the case. Appleby, who was the prosecutor, took great pains to avoid asking potential jurors whether they thought I was guilty, electing to ask them instead whether they could, quote, put their opinions aside. He carefully avoided asking their opinions about me, the Black Liberation Army, the Black Panther Party, Black militants, or anything else
that had been negatively and biasly reported in the newspapers. The trial lawyers had no right to question jurors. Applebee's voir dire was designed to make sure
voir dire.
I'm sorry?
Voir dire.
Voir dire, excuse me, was designed to make sure the most hypocritical, opinionated jurors stayed on the jury. And there are two examples in there, and I'm going to summarize. Basically, he asked them, do you know about this case? The juror will respond, yes. Do you have any bias towards this case? And the defendant, the juror pretty much said, yes. And he's like, do you think that you can set your bias aside and give a fair opinion? One juror, in one example, said, yes. The other one said, nah. Needless to say, both of them made the final jury.
Yep. Yeah, and
so,
you know what that jury looked like, because
of course you know what the jury looked like.
What the jury still looked like for the most part. And it was self-defense. That's the other part. Like, that shootout never had to happen. They had some aggressive police, the same way we have aggressive police now. Unfortunately for the police, they picked the wrong one on the right day, and these folks were armed to defend themselves, and they defended themselves. And it's hard to get people who have not lived the Black experience to understand that you are under attack quite often. We've lost a lot of people. I'm talking thousands of folks to police violence. It only makes the news when it's recorded or egregious. And you think about how many people just went up missing or were murdered, and then the cops just told a lie about them or whatever, because once upon a time, Black people couldn't testify in court. Black people couldn't be on a jury. There were very few, if any, Black lawyers until you got to like the 60s, right? So, having a fair trial was never a thing. You were accused of whatever they accused you of. And think about how that stacks the numbers in the statistics people like to spout today. Well, Black people have always been more guilty of crime. No, Black people have gone to jail for things.
Yes.
You haven't even done. Been executed for things that other people have done and pinned on them. Think about the movie Rosewood. A white woman is having an affair with a white man. He beats her. She can't tell her husband where these bruises came from, so she blames it on a Black man, and they burned a whole town to the ground. Stole the land, kept the land, and then 50 years later said, well, if any of your kids are still surviving, they can go to college for free in Florida. All because a white woman told a lie. Emmett Till lost his life because a white woman told a lie.
On her deathbed, admitted that she told a lie.
Right. And I hope she burns forever for it. I told you this was not going to make people comfortable.
Because why would you wait that long?
Trying to go to heaven. I hope she got to heaven and Jesus was Black and he was like, nah, girl, and just sit on it's interesting to think about heaven, because my version of heaven don't have none of them there. Does heaven have neighborhoods? Is there redlining in heaven? Because I feel like there's some people I don't want to see in heaven.
Right.
They're not there.
That part. That part.
Okay. Because I always think about the thing with certain, like, I don't want to ascribe this to a religion, but I know there are certain aspects of other religions that say, you'll get like 72 virgins in heaven if you die for the religion. And my thing is, how is that heaven for them?
Oh, point.
Yeah. It feels very unfair.
It seems a bit lopsided, to say the least.
Yeah. Nobody else talks about that part. Right.
But this is what happens when, a society is completely run by only men.
Yep.
And I don't understand the obsession with wanting virgins in this day and age. I
do. But I'm not going to talk about that. You know what we'll do? Since March is Women's History Month.
Oh, there we go.
Women historical figures, especially the ones that have been overlooked or had their stuff stolen by men. Looking at you, Marie Curie, and the lady that decoded the DNA strands. And two men took her to her information. We'll get into that next month. So come back next month at the end of March. We're going to have women in history and how men have messed them over.
Yes.
Yeah. Just another tangent, because intrusive thoughts. White women, I want to talk to you right now. Listen to me. Stop letting these white men push you off of cliffs. Okay? I spent a good hour earlier today on Threads reading about this thing called Alpine divorce. The Alpine divorce, bruh. The Alpine divorce is when a guy takes a girl hiking or diving. There were some episodes of people going diving and leaving them out there.
No.
You go hiking on a mountain or whatever, and then, he's like, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna go pee, and just leave you on a mountain. Matter of fact, one guy had done it twice. And the first girl went missing. Nobody ever knew what happened to her. Second girl, he pushed her off the cliff. She lived, came back to, attempted murder. And then they found the other girl. He put her in the same spot like 15 years later. Isn't that wild? But this is some white people shit. And the reason I say that is because we tend to not go hiking. We tend to not go diving. And maybe I wonder now if that wasn't our inner intuition, survival instinct, like, don't go out there with the white people
by yourself alone.
Because we have seen that happen, like black girl mysteriously dying at a sleepover.
Yes.
The black boy who was wrapped up. They said he wrapped himself up in a gym mat and died.
No. Yeah. Not even.
They drowned a black boy just to see if they could. And then they try to cover it all up. Yeah, don't go nowhere with white men. You have a better chance with the bear. At least the bear would lead you to food or something. They just leave you out there. Or one lady, and the thing I saw, all of these ladies were talking about how they got left somewhere. And I'm like, why y'all keep dating these people? And one lady said that she went diving, and the guy swam back to the boat and convinced the people on the boat that she was on the boat and just in the bathroom, and they drove away. And she had to swim back to shore by herself from a diving expedition. That's not close to shore. That's at least a mile out.
That's miles out.
Yes. And she just had, I think, a trawler picked her up and got her the rest of the way back. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh. At least you knew where the shoreline was.
Right? Because I'd have just been like, I'm just out here.
Blue everywhere, basically. Like, what way did we?
Yeah. You just follow, and you try to follow you'd have to get real meta with it and be like, okay, if I look at the map of the world or whatever, I know that I am in the ocean off the coast of Belize. And so I have to be east of Belize. So I'm going to swim towards the sun and go west, and eventually I'll hit land. That's a whole lot of thinking while you steady drowning. Another woman said that she saw a shark coming at her, and her man took the harpoon and swam away with it. That's attempted murder. So you know what? So white women, for y'all to be caping for these dudes so hard.
I wouldn't prosecute if he ended up
and voting against your own interests and all this kind of stuff. They showed up, he's trying to kill you, and only just so they can go get another girlfriend. Just they don't want to give you half the money in a divorce. They'd rather murder you out on a hill. Yo, stop. Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it. We told you it was not. Look, your sensibilities be damned tonight.
Yes. And so who do we have next?
Let's go ahead and hit the Stoner Rebellion.
The Stoner Rebellion. Okay, let's talk about it, because the Stoner Rebellion is how do I want to put this? It's the largest slave revolt in the British mainland colonies. They marched for freedom. So let's talk. It's 1739. So this is before the United States becomes a country, because we were a country in 1776. 1739, Stoner Rebellion. Let's see if I can pull up what I wanted. It began in at the time it was called British North America. Began September 9th, 1739. About 20 Africans raided a store near the Stoner River, and they were taking guns, they were taking other weapons. They killed the 2 shopkeepers, and then they started marching north toward the freedom that was promised. And they started marching south towards Florida, because the Spanish had been saying, if you can come to Florida, you can be free. Isn't that wild? Think about how Spanish-speaking people in Florida are acting right now. Yeah. So anyway, it began, like I said, it only lasted, let me see if I can pull up how long it lasted. It was the largest slave rebellion. So it started in September 9th, 1739. 25 colonists and about 50 or so African slaves or enslaved African people. The leaders were from Congo, and they were Catholic. And so, a lot of people like to think that people who found religion or are highly religious lack or suppress that desire to rebel or desire to be free. No. These are Congolese Catholics who are like, yeah, no, we're not doing this no more. I think the leader is a guy named Jimmy, Jemmy, or Cato, Cato. Both have been reported, but this is so long ago. And of course, when you're not trying to talk about slave rebellions, you really don't want to be bringing up no names. But you know where it started, right? Guess. What state always be starting shit?
Texas.
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. When in doubt, it's South Carolina.
Yeah.
You don't know, just say South Carolina. Yeah. So the South Carolina militia was formed or was assembled to put down this rebellion. Okay. And 20 or so people were killed, 20 more were executed. And this was people killed by the slaves, right? They went on a murdering spree. What did I say at the beginning of the show? We stand with everybody we talk about. Mm-hmm. So they killed, they got intercepted near the Edisto River in South Carolina. But they made it another 30 miles before they finally got defeated. And it lasted about a week and a half, maybe 10 days. So they did a lot of murdering in them 10 days.
Oops.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons, because remember, this is 1739.
Right.
So the Security Act of 1739 required all white men to carry guns at all times, even to church. And you think about open carry laws that we have now. Whenever you hear white people talk about we need to protect ourselves, that is their DNA memory, remembering how black folks got loose and got at them. And so that's why they always feel like they got to protect themselves. They still remember that they are old and ass whooping. So, what else did I want to talk about? There was something else I wanted to talk about from this. They spoke Portuguese. Nice. A lot of them. So this is also another reason, because remember, this is before the country was really, really formed. But slavery in the United States started in the 1600s. They've been slaves in the United States for over 100 years at this point. A little 120 years at this point. But it's one of the reasons that they wouldn't let slaves learn to read. And it's one of the reasons that they wouldn't let slaves speak their native languages. But they forgot that, everybody isn't monolingual. A lot of these enslaved people from either Angola or the Congo, they spoke Portuguese. And so they could speak that to each other, and they were forming their rebellion. And Portuguese and Spanish are not the same language, but similar to like French and Latin, you can kind of figure it out. That's why they were speaking to the Portuguese speaking and the Spanish speaking people in Florida. Oh, we can be free down here. Oh, here we come. We're on our way. They just got stopped.
Almost. So close.
So close. But it also is one of the reasons that they started splitting up slaves when they came into the United States, because we can't have y'all knowing each other and talking to each other and having similar backgrounds. Y'all, and so splitting up, separating parents, separating kids, separating people from the same villages, and basically mix and matching everybody and sending them off in different places was to stop the opportunity of folks getting to know each other, having any common background, and being able to foment rebellion. So
if we find out we have nothing in common, it's going to be hard to communicate.
Different languages, different backgrounds, and you don't know who to trust. You don't know who anybody is, and all of y'all are struggling to learn this hodgepodge language of English. About people who also don't know English well. It was a mess. It was a whole mess. But I always find it interesting that during all these slave revolts, it never became too unpopular. It never became a losing premise. The money was always so good, because basically you printing money, you got free money, you got people that you can beat up, and have them do your bidding, and for the price of, a chicken spread across 30 people,
Right.
you can make 600 bales of cotton and sell it for a ridiculous amount of money. So yeah, they didn't care about the rebellions. They didn't care about their neighbors dying or getting burned to the ground or whatever. They
it was
cared
just
about
a void
the
to be filled.
Right. And so rather than free people that are asking to be free, they're like, no, we're just going to get better at cutting out loopholes for you to get yourself
free. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Stono Rebellion is something else for y'all to look up. Okay. All right. Next up on the hit parade.
Next up is Mary Ellen Pleasant.
Mary Ellen. I love this story because Mary Ellen Pleasant was that chick. Light skin power to the rescue. Mary Ellen Pleasant was, what was she known as? She was known as like the savior of California. So a lot of people think that Madam C.J. Walker was the first Black woman millionaire. No. Mary Ellen Pleasant. Mary Ellen Pleasant, born August 19th, 1814, died January 11th, 1904. So generations before Madam C.J. Walker. She was arguably the first self-made millionaire with African-American heritage in the United States. She was an entrepreneur. She was a real estate mogul. She was a financier. So she, loaning people money and making money back on that. And she was an abolitionist. And the thing about it, she never put on airs. You would never know from looking at her that she had millions of dollars just hiding off in the back. She styled herself as, a cleaner, a washerwoman. People didn't realize that the house that she was coming in and out of, she owned that whole block. Yeah. And she put a whole lot of money during the gold rush era. She put a whole lot of money into financing people's free ride to freedom on the Underground Railroad. Well, not ride, because I don't want people to think that the Underground Railroad was a real railroad, because y'all stupid. The Underground Railroad was a connection of safe houses across the United States.
That part.
And if you look at a map, you notice that it is a lot longer to get to California than it is to get to Canada if you're starting in like Georgia or South Carolina, right? But she financed a lot of people to come out west to California because she balling out there. And because nobody knows she has money, she could give money to people. She gave people money to get started, to buy land, to go back and buy the freedom of their families. Like if somebody got free and they had a wife or a kid that was still enslaved back down south, she would just buy that person. She wouldn't, because if you escape the freedom, you can't go back.
No.
So she would just be like, you know what? I need more workers. I'm gonna give me that one. And that's how she did. And she rolled like that for a long time. During the gold rush, she helped people get safe. She helped people become self-sufficient. She's called the mother of human rights in California. Yeah. Some of her battles, she didn't win every battle. Sometimes she won, sometimes she didn't. But early on, throughout her whole life, I think she was born, where was she born? She said she was born free in Philadelphia. She may or may not have been the daughter of a voodoo priestess from the Caribbean and a Hawaiian merchant. So we're not sure who her parents were. We just know that she was team light skin. And that also helped her because, let's be real, like a proximity to whiteness led to more freedom and more assumptions of freedom. So she said she was born free and people believed her because Philadelphia, she probably was, right? And then used all of her privilege, all of her power, all of her wealth, and all of her financial backing to ball out and buy the freedom of hundreds of people. And that's a boss move.
Yes, it is.
We out here talking about building generational wealth so we can just, buy a car or send our kids to college. She out here buying freedom in the 1800s.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yes. So we pull one out and give a shout out to Mary Ellen Pleasant, the first self-made millionaire Black woman in the United States.
Here.
Period. Yes.
Okay. All right. We got a few more left before we hit the last one.
Okay.
Want to get into this gentleman here, Mr. Robert Smalls.
Robert Smalls. Take it away.
All right. So,
Portrait of a Gangster.
Absolutely.
Oh. Hell yeah. Teen Light Bright.
All right. So Robert Smalls was born in 1839, was actually born into slavery in, again, where all the stuff pops off, Joy, South Carolina, Beaufort, to be specific.
What I tell you, man, South Carolina is that place. Matter of fact, my favorite content creator, Son Michaud, the Harvard professor who's keeping the Gullah Geechee language alive. I want to say he's in South Carolina too.
Okay. Would make sense, yeah. That's what the islands are off the coast of South Carolina.
Yep.
But Robert Smalls, unfortunately born into slavery, but was working with his mother, who was a servant in the house that he grew up in. And at some point, he gets, how do I want to say this? He gets forced into the military life when the Civil War broke out in 1861.
That happened to a lot of enslaved people. This is why there is now a correction or a disclaimer on Gone with the Wind, because they'll make you believe that a lot of enslaved men just went to fight for the South because they loved their masters so much. No, they were conscripted.
They were conscripted into service by their masters because those with money were commissioned officers, and their troops were either the slave hands that they had, who were, lower ranking officers below them, or the slaves that they had on their property were conscripted into service.
And that's another reason that was a stupid proposition to begin with, because if you conscript me to be a slave, first off, they wouldn't give them weapons. But I'm not cooking. I'm gonna act a whole ass the whole time. I'm gonna be the laziest, slowest, shiftless Negro you ever saw.
All right. So Mr. Robert Smalls here was conscripted by his slave master to serve aboard the Plantier, a ship that was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina. Traveled basically made supply runs mostly from South Carolina to Florida, ports and forts along the coastline. And on May 12th, 1862, the 3 white officers who were on the boat when it came into port left the ship with basically the entire all-black crew left on the boat, which is a custom for them to do. They've done this many times thinking nothing was going to happen. But again, May 12th, 1862, Robert Smalls and the crew pretty much was like, tonight's the night.
Yep. Tonight is the night.
So as those 3 white officers disembarked to go into town to drink and do whatever it is they normally do, Robert Smalls and his crew pretty much left the ship, found their families, snuck them on the boat, convinced the white officers that this was, the usual familial visit, got them on the boat. Some of them, they had to make it look like they were leaving the ship. So as they left the ship, they looped around to fool the other ships that were in dock. Got them back aboard, and under the cover of night, left. Hit every Confederate checkpoint as they sailed north.
They knew the signs for the checkpoint.
And they knew all the signs. They knew all the signals. Robert Smalls knew everything like the back of his hand. He knew the routes. And even though his people was like, hey, maybe we should steer wide of this fort, or, not end up too close to this fort, he was like, nah, we're going to travel the same route, the same way, because if we do anything slightly out of the ordinary, we may get found out. So we're going to do everything is business as usual. I know the signs. I know the whistle blows to give when we go past certain checkpoints. And it wasn't until they got to Fort Sumter. By this point, it was already too late. The white soldiers there pretty much saw everything was copacetic, let them go, and then realized once they were way out of gun range, the white officers weren't there.
Yep.
Oh, and those white officers, they were all court-martialed.
As they should have been. Dereliction of duty.
Exactly.
What was you doing? You out here rabble rousing out at the brothels and the saloons, and your whole boat got stolen by people that can't read.
So at this point, Smalls is only 23. He turned the ship over to the Union Army. They were so impressed by him and the crew having navigated through all the Confederate checkpoints, made it up to them. They were basically given their freedom. Those who wanted to leave the military service were allowed to leave. Smalls and the rest of his group decided, you know what, we just want to kick it and we're going to work with the Union. What do you need us to do? Because here's a buttload of information I have, right? Here are all the signals. Here are all the travel routes. Here's all the locations. Here's the armaments of all the ports. Like, if y'all want to start raiding stuff along the South Carolina coast, we can get it popping.
And let's talk about that, because I'm sick of the narrative that, Abraham Lincoln wrote a letter and freed the slaves. That's not what happened. The Emancipation Proclamation put the nail in the coffin, but throughout the entire Civil War, Black people fought for their own freedom. They either drug their feet if they were conscripted to the Confederate Army, or if they made it free, they came back and worked as spies, like Harriet Tubman, and as soldiers in the Union Army. And even when they made it to freedom, if you remember the movie Glory, they still didn't want to give them guns. And so this idea that racism is a Southern thing is a misunderstanding. All white people in the United States is racist. All of them. All of them. Even the abolitionists didn't think that Black people should be humanized. They didn't think they should vote. They didn't think that they deserve equal rights. They just didn't think they should be enslaved. Very similar to, like, you don't want to see a dog get abused, but you don't want that dog eating off your table, right?
That part.
Same thing, right? And so Black people put a lot of work and effort into freeing themselves. And the North didn't have the intel to win that war. Matter of fact, it was a very close thing. If some of the money that Queen Charlotte, Queen Charlotte, close to my homegirl, I dressed as her for Dragon Con, but she did some bullshit. But that money had made it to the South because Queen Charlotte was interested in destabilizing the United States so they could get their colonies back. But she wanted the South to win so they could tear all that shit up, because then Great Britain comes in as a massive power and takes over all these little fiefdoms, right? It would have been simple, but they messed that up. Having that intel, knowing where they held the supplies, the Black people know all of this because the Black folks are the ones stocking all the supplies, putting all the horses up, carrying all the boxes of guns from one place to another, carrying the gold from one place to another, because God forbid the Southerners do their own backbreaking work. And then if one of them get free, hey, I know they got a warehouse full of XYZ over here. I know that if you go up, follow the river up 2 miles, and you'll find their hideout. Yeah, you can't win the war without Black people. So this idea that enslaved Africans were just sitting around a plantation, shelling peanuts, waiting to be free, is some nonsense. They fought for their freedom. And if the North doesn't have that advantage, they don't win that war. They don't. And so, thank you for the Emancipation Proclamation, but we did it mostly ourselves.
Absolutely. So in the end, again, Smalls served basically everyone who stayed on the ship. They let him run the ship. He piloted it on numerous missions to either subdue Southern forts or help his white counterparts escape being ambushed to get out. He was eventually promoted to captain. He later served as a politician.
Yeah. And he go back and buy the plantation he used to work on?
I believe so.
Yep. And that's why he became a plantation.
That was his business.
Yeah.
In 1866, he went into business in Beaufort, where he was from. I'm trying to get to the point here. Yeah, but basically the plantation, in summation, yes, he did take over the plantation where he grew up.
Yeah. Now, you talk about a movie that needs to be made. Instead of this, Robert, we're going to put that comment up in just a second, but instead of remaking all these movies about slavery, let's make a movie about, they did a movie about Nat Turner, but let's do a movie about Robert Smalls. That's a great story.
Right.
And
he was fluent in the Gullah dialect.
That would be awesome. Ooh, Son Michaud could play him in the movie. That'd be awesome. But put up this quote about this, Robert. I always thought it was weird. We have Confederate statues Like, weren't they a foreign country as soon as they seceded? Yes, you're right.
Mhm.
And do we have statues of other foreign soldiers we are at war with? Absolutely not. No other country. So this is, okay, so what you're speaking to is one of the fundamental, we out here.
Yeah,
That's
we
my
out
boy.
here.
Yeah. What you're speaking to, Robert, is one of the fundamental problems with American society, and that is this desire to forgive white crime.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't forgive it, place the blame for somebody else. So I mentioned before, like, Black people weren't allowed to testify, they weren't allowed to be lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of white crime was blamed on Black people. You know, I remember when Facebook first started, this little boy, this old man said he was trying to find a Black woman that used to be a maid at his mother's house. And he wanted to find her and apologize to her before he died, because when he was young, he broke his glasses that, you know, his mom told him, don't break your glasses. He broke them, and he stole the money that they were supposed to pay the maid off the table so he could go buy another pair of glasses, and his mom would never know that he broke his glasses. The woman who's supposed to get paid just goes and talks to her employer and says, you know, can I have my check? And the lady's like, well, can I have my cash? And the lady's like, your money was on the table. She's like, there's no money on the table. You must have stolen it. You're a thief. Fire that woman, blacklisted her so she couldn't get hired anywhere else. And that boy kept his mouth shut. And now
I remember that. And Facebook said, F you, burn in hell.
Die like this. Yes. I hope
we ain't gonna help you find nobody.
No. I hope her whole family sees this and they never forgive you. You know, and so a lot of white crime has a Black name on it because it was easy to do. Think about, I can't remember the name of that woman, but remember the woman who drowned her kids and said a Black man stole her car?
Mm-hmm.
We knew that was a lie because ain't no Black man taking a car with kids.
South Carolina.
Lord have mercy.
Mm-hmm. Because she had basically, and look, I don't know what mothers go through as far as raising kids.
It could have been postpartum depression. But the kids was grown. I mean, they weren't grown, but they weren't like
grown, but they were like toddlers, somewhere between like toddler and 8 years old.
4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah. So, it was what, 3 of them? And yeah, she basically drove that car into the nearby lake and said a Black man stole her car with her kids in it.
Yeah.
I had no idea where it was.
It's very easy to blame something on a Black person because the very nature of our skin gives white people an excuse as to why they don't trust us and think that we are dangerous. You know, like I remember, and I knew she didn't want to ask, and I'm glad she didn't, but I remember I was somewhere with like a coworker and she couldn't find her phone, wallet, purse, or something. I can't remember what it was, but she's like, I can't find it. Have you seen it? No, I haven't. And so she's looking around again and again. And she's like, and she wanted to say, are you sure you haven't seen it? And she said, are you? And I said, am I what? Nothing. Yeah, that's what the fuck I thought. Come to find out, it was like back in her room. She didn't never bring it to the room, right? But she wanted to, her thought was, I must have taken it. Mind you, I wasn't the only other person in the room. She didn't ask the white guy behind her. She asked me. Of course not. Right. And I clock that kind of thing all the time. But going back to Robert Smalls is that dude for sure. Mm-hmm. And we should have statues of people like him, like that statue of Denmark Vesey. There should be more statues aside from Martin Luther King, right? Should be more statues of more freedom fighters. You know, there should be statues of Crispus Attucks. Because Crispus Attucks, as we all know, we get taught that he's the first person to die in the American Revolution. What we don't get taught is that he was a Black man.
Yep.
Most likely Black and Native American.
Mm-hmm.
The two demographics that have suffered the most at the hands of white America were the first ones to die for the idea of America. Was this episode sponsored? Yes, this episode is brought to you in part by Black AF History by Michael Harriot, available in other places besides Amazon right now. But go and buy the book and read it. A lot of this is in there. Yeah,
absolutely.
There's so much story. There's so much background and history for Black America that we don't know. And we start to believe the hype. That's how you end up with people playing respectability politics, people voting Republican, people thinking that Black people need to just pull themselves up because they've never done anything. It's because they believe the false narrative of history that they've been told, which is that you came out of nowhere and you were slaves, and then we let you go, and then you can't get a job. Like that's what they think, you know. And it's so much more than that. We are so much more than that. We are everything.
We got one more here, since we've already touched on Black soldiers and the American Revolution.
Yes. So again, one of the reasons I wanted to bring them up, it's the Black Regiment, the 1st Rhode Island Regiment in Massachusetts, or is it the 54th? The 54th Massachusetts, which is the first. Excuse me. Let me make sure I pull up the right thing. Okay. The 54th, the brave Black Regiment, the 54th in Massachusetts. They were commissioned by President Abraham Lincoln, Governor John Andrew, formed them, and they were one of the first regiments to fight in the Civil War. Now, a lot of people think that Black people didn't fight on behalf of this country until World War II. We got popular in World War II, but we fought in every war, including the Civil War. I mean, so even the idea that, including the Revolutionary War as well, because again, there were already slave owners. And if you watch Hamilton, they talk about this, that you have all of these enslaved people who were fighting for the freedom of the United States on the promise that if they fought on behalf of the United States, or what would become the United States, they would gain their freedom in exchange for their service as a soldier. And then they never freed them. They've been lying to us from day one. But now fast forward to the Civil War, and Lincoln asked for more people to be, brought up in the ranks. And Black people didn't want to just sit back. They wanted to fight for their freedom too. So like I said, one of the first Black regiments was coming out of Massachusetts. It was Frederick Douglass helped recruit them. And they assaulted Fort Wagner in, guess where?
South Carolina.
July 1863, South Carolina. They assaulted Fort Wagner. I think most of them died in that battle. However, that led to proving that Black.
Because that's what glory is based off of.
That's what glory is based off of. Exactly. But that led to a whole lot more Black men enlisting, being allowed to enlist up to like 150,000 or 180,000. A whole lot more Black men enlisted. So there's again this idea that Black people are just sitting back waiting to be freed. 180,000 Black men enlisted in the Union Army during the Civil War to fight for the freedom of their families, their brethren, their community, to be freed up out of the South. So there's that. And I also want to give a shout out. I don't have a picture of them or anything, but I also want to give a shout out to the Harlem Hellfighters.
Oh, yes.
Of World War I. Harlem Hellfighters, again, all Black troop, because of course segregation, out of Harlem, went to fight in World War I. And they were the most feared regiment because they wouldn't die. They were so gangster with it. Germany was afraid of them. Italy was afraid of them. And they got decorated by France and Great Britain for their bravery, came back home to the N-word, right? Yeah. And their history has been lost to time for a long time because people just didn't want to see Black excellence. The same with the Tuskegee Airmen, right? Never lost an escorted plane over to World War II. But you don't hear about how great they were, right? You just hear about how they had bad planes and, there was some Black people that did something over there, whatever. But anyway, let's talk about Patton, right? So yeah, we've always been here. We've always been great. We've always fought for freedom for ourselves and for others. And we've always been them dudes and those women, right? And so I want anybody who can hear this to remember that if you are a member of the African diaspora, there's greatness in your blood.
Absolutely.
Never let anybody tell you different. And stop trying to impress other folks and impress yourself. Be great. Yeah. So, matter of fact, a lot of people didn't hear about the Harlem Hellfighters until Battlefield 1941, I think, or 1914 came out. It was set in World War I, and the cover of the video game. This is back when you got hard copy video games. The cover of the video game was a Black soldier. And young white men lost their shit because they felt like, why y'all got to make everything woke? There wasn't even any black men in World War I. There were no soldiers like that. Oh, excuse the hell out of you. And that's where their story gained more traction. And similar to how people didn't learn about the Tulsa Massacre until either Lovecraft Country or Watchmen. You know, and so keep bringing these things up. Keep making sure people know, so they know, again, that there's greatness in all of us.
Absolutely. So freaking because I think the Harlem Hellfires, I think the first time I heard about them was an episode of the Cosby Show. Because like Cliff was sitting around with his dad and his friends, not Cliff's friends, but his dad's friends. They were telling old stories from when they were all in World War II. And one of them mentioned being a descendant of someone from World War I with the Harlem Hellfighters. So yeah, and similarly told a story about how when their group went over to Germany and fight, and the Germans saw that, you know, a black group had pretty much surrounded them, whatever, was like, yeah, we're screw y'all. We just play. We out of here because we ain't surrendering to y'all. And then once they fired a couple of shots in front of them, be like, the hell you think you going? It's like, all right, so maybe being captured by you ain't so bad.
Right. But this last comment about pornography is like, we were talking about, there's greatness in it. He says, then why are we still treated as such? Why are we still treated so badly? You can't control what other people do to you, but you can control how you react to it. And you can control how you let it make you feel. And so that being said, nobody can take your dignity. You can just give it away. And so I don't care what your situation is. I don't care where you are. I don't care who is telling you that you are less than. You don't have to believe them. You don't have to let it affect how you move in this world. You know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, you need to find out who you are. And then move as such. Yeah, I don't care how people think about me. I don't care how they want to treat me. I know you're going to respect me because I'm not going to let you disrespect me. And I think that it may end up costing me my life at some point, considering the way this country is going, that I refuse to stand for disrespect. But I bet you in 100 years, I'll be on another episode of THIStory. And then there was a girl, Joy Stevens, in the airport. She wouldn't give up her seat or whatever it might be. But I mean, you know, and I'm not saying just run out and punch people in the face all day. I'm just saying you're not going to disrespect me. The same way that girl tried to insinuate that I should know where her phone or whatever was. Have I what? This is the face of someone that don't take no shit. I don't know who you think you are, but I know who I am. And who I am is someone that does not allow disrespect. Just as simple as that. So when you think about how they treat now, does my personal affirmations of dignity and respect change the fact that I probably had to pay more for a loan for my last condo? No. But that's also why we fight for voting rights. People really don't understand. If voting didn't matter, they wouldn't try to stop you from doing it so much.
Hard. Need people to wake up to that.
Right. And then quit falling for the okie doke. Like, oh, I'm not voting for so-and-so because this one thing they said one day was stupid. Look, I'm going to tell y'all.
Our system is ass. Yes, you're voting for the lesser of two evils. Understand that one of them is trying to throw your ass back in chains.
Yes. Like literally. It's not even a game. It's not even about, oh, well, we're all slaves to capitalism. No, they're really trying to put you back on the rock busting chain gang. And I'm gonna tell you this: we've got to stop looking for perfection in our role models, in our public speakers, in our legislators. They're not gonna be perfect. They don't have to be, kitty diddlers, but they don't have to be perfect. And so, while we out here doing Black History, let me just besmirch some names real quick. Malcolm X was trade at one point. Y'all figure out what that is if you don't know. And Martin Luther King was in love with a white woman, and he cheated on his wife
multiple times.
Yes, both of those statements would have them disqualified as being leaders of the Black community today. But everybody wants to know, where's our Martin? Where's our Malcolm? Y'all have probably already canceled them, right?
Yes, pornography. You don't have to. Well, yes, that's true. Both of them.
Go look it up. Yeah. What was his name? Cincinnati Red.
Yep, Cincinnati Red.
Pimp. And when you run out of other people to pimp, pimp yourself if you need the money.
Mm-hmm.
People think he just sprouted out of nowhere as El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. No, sir. He was Cincinnati Red at first. And Martin Luther King.
Was Cincinnati or Kansas City? One of them.
Maybe Kansas City Red. Kansas City sounds more probable. But yeah, but he was definitely red. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And you say, so what if he was straight? It doesn't matter to me because I'm open-minded. Anybody that has a good idea, I'm going to listen to and see if you have good ideas. What I'm saying is, if he tried to be a leader today, and that came out,
so
people
Detroit Red.
Detroit Red.
That's what.
Yes, I knew it was a city with black people in it.
Detroit Red is what he was called.
But if it came out that he was straight today and he was trying to be a leader of the black community, they would just stop listening to him.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, he doesn't represent me. I'm not going to let somebody who did those terrible things, who has no self, or whatever, all kind of respectability politics, all kind of holier than thou pious nonsense would make him a non-starter as a leader in the black community. If look at how we treat other celebrities. So, like, I can't remember the young man's name, but he was married to a white woman, and people lost their shit. And they felt like he couldn't be a representative of black power and black excellence because he married a white woman. And I see it from time to time, like some of the people I follow online, like black women that either once were married or currently married to a white man or a man who is not black. And people want to act like they can't speak for the black community because they're not married to a black man. None of that matters. If you are interested in making sure that me and my people can get a fair shake in this country, I want to hear what you have to say. But so many folks don't think of it that way. They want you to be perfect and pure, And Lil Nas X, I adore Lil Nas X. I think he's great. But look at how people treated him when they found out that he was gay, right?
Yep.
All of a sudden, his Old Town Road just smooth off the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I love how he leaned into it. That's how you respond when people he's like, yeah, I be gay, balls in my face. So what?
Mm-hmm.
And then he put out there, call me by your name. Say what?
Listen to the song. How could you not, if you actually listen to the lyrics?
For Old Town Road?
Yes. It's not like he's hiding it. Which he came out and said afterwards. He wasn't out, but he wasn't necessarily like covert with it or anything.
Right. And then so when he finally was out, then he was like, yeah, call me by your name, which is a great video. And I'm gonna tell you, I know I'm off on another tangent. The problem that a lot of straight black men had with Lil Nas X is that he was fine. He wasn't a twink. That boy had muscles, that boy had a six-pack. And in the video, I forget the song, I decided long ago, this is what you're waiting for. They use it a lot in sports. I told you long ago. Yeah, that one. The video for that is insane because it starts off with him in prison, and he is in prison.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about.
Things. Yeah, he didn't pulled his pockets out, got two dudes holding him. He's that dude, right? And being able to hold on to his masculinity and his strength at the same time as being wholly a gay man scared the shit out of a lot of straight black men. And they can't stand him for it because he is not their idea of weak, because gay is supposed to be adjacent to feminine, which is supposed to be weaker, And this dude is out here with a whole six-pack, butt naked in his video and looking good too. And
Industry Baby is the name of the video.
So what? Industry Baby. Yes, thank you. Yes, which is a great song. Thank you for bringing up Lil Nas X. And you know what? We're going to add him to our list of black rebels. Because for the LGBTQ community, yeah, he came out. He's like, he didn't start off saying he was out, but once he was out, he's like, and
what?
Balls in the face. Now what? Started wearing.
It's like, since y'all want to put it out there, like, I'm not dipping my toe out here to be like, nope, say it with my whole chest.
Right, because like Ricky Martin did that, right? Because when it came out that Ricky Martin might be gay and somebody asked him about it, he's like, why does that even matter? And so then everybody's like, oh, he must be gay. And they stunted his career. And I was really happy to see Ricky Martin at the Super Bowl. Welcome back, my friend. But yeah, Lil Nas X is like, yeah, I'm not doing it. And when I talk about dignity, you can't take his dignity. You can't embarrass him by stating that he is who he is, because he's not embarrassed about who he is. And so, yeah, eat it. And the whole pole dance in Call Me by Your Name is hilarious.
Sliding down the hill.
Sliding down the pole. That was my favorite part. I love that he learned the pole dance just so he could do that.
Do that, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a hero. Lil Nas X is a hero in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because he decided he was going to be unabashedly, unashamedly, and unapologetically who he is. And hats off to him.
Indeed.
Yes. So thanks for the add-on. Do we have anybody else we want to talk about before we go?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Anybody? Because when you first mentioned this, first person I thought of was Assata Shakur, because again, like I said, about almost 30 years ago, I read the autobiography. So,
Did you read one of her poems? I thought you were going to read a poem.
Them poems are long.
Oh, okay. No, never mind.
Some are long. I can find a short one.
No, it's good. It's good. Go if you have a chance, go and find Assata. Yes, her story in her words. It's a great book. And also read Black AF History.
Indeed.
Mary Jones.
Mary Jones.
Okay. Let's see if I can find a picture of her real quick. So Mother Jones, same person.
Gotcha.
Here we go. Let's see if I can find their whole story. Doggone it. Everything keeps sending me to like stupid firewalls and whatnot. Okay.
Oh, great. That's not helpful at all.
No, okay, so I was wrong. Mother Jones and Mary Jones are not the same person.
Not the same person.
You know what? We'll add her since
May.
Thanks for the suggestions. We'll add her to March and stuff since she is a woman.
I'm in March. Sorry, not May.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious, May is.
We'll make sure to add Mary Jones. Peter Sewley. The reason that we're stuttering is because we're trying to pull up their, Wikipedia or whatever on the fly.
Right.
Oh, yes, let's talk about it.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so this is one and the same. Now it all makes sense. I did not realize, and I should have, because there's a book called Black on Both Sides. I have it and I haven't finished. I haven't read it. But thank you. Mary Jones, also known as, formerly known as Peter Sewley. But Black on Both Sides is a collection of essay stories and like history around the history of gender fluidity in Black America. Because a lot of people think like gay people just popped up after Stonewall and Marsha P. Johnson, but they've been around since before the end of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, the first balls, as we would know them today, happened around the turn of the century. They used to arrest the old boy all the time. There we go. This is our friend we're talking right now, Peter Sewley. So born 1836 to 1853. He didn't live that long. He was a sex worker. I think he would rather have been known as transgender, but at the time, most likely cross-dressing is what they would have called it at the time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They would wear suits by day and then at night turn up. Oh, wait, you know what? Apparently he had a prosthetic vagina. I don't know how that works in the 1800s. But he had
that time frame. I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
He had a fleshlight back in the 1800s.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what else you gonna call it?
But so before there was Cardi B, there was Mary Jones, who would engage in sexual acts for money with men of different races and whatnot and rob them. This is awesome. And went to jail in New York a lot. Yeah, so June 11th, 1836. Mind you, this slavery is still a thing. So June 11th in New York, 1836, a man who had, did the deed with Mary Jones realized when he got home that his wallet was gone.
Oops.
And so when they arrested Mary Jones, Mary was found to have male genitalia, and that's how the whole story broke, right? And so when he was asked why he was dressed in feminine attire, I have been in the practice. This is in their own voice. I have been in the practice of waiting upon girls of ill fame and made up their beds and received the company at the door and received the money for the rooms. And they induced me to dress in women's clothes, saying I look so much better in them. And I have always attended parties among the people of my own color dressed this way. And in New Orleans, I always dress this way. And that makes perfect sense.
Because New Orleans, right? But honestly, if you follow the people I follow online, there's a whole lot of dudes that's way finer than girls in the same outfit. They got legs for days. They look good in heels. Give them a couple socks and they fill out, and they look amazing. They got it's usually the legs and the snatch waist. There's nothing to hate about it. I mean, RuPaul's Drag Race has always been one of my favorite shows, and some of them, even in quick drag, just a little bit of lipstick and a wig look better than me, right? And so I can see it being like, especially given a lot of men's proportions, as long as they're not too tall, their proportions make it easy for them to wear women's couture clothing or women's clothing. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, RuPaul, when RuPaul being her and RuPaul Charles being him, RuPaul, when she first got started, was modeling as a man, and then they needed a woman to wear some stuff, and they're like, Ru, you do it. And he walked the runway in like a bustier and a wig and whatnot, and towed the place down, and that became their thing, and a glorious life and future and media mogulness grew out of that, But yeah, there's a lot. Clothes are not made for curves a lot of the times. If you look at the models, they are very flat, very narrow, and that could be a very unisex. Sorry.
What?
Toothpicks.
Toothpicks. They can be a very unisex look. So yeah, you can absolutely get away with it. And then,
yeah.
I don't know I want to know what he was using for a prosthetic vagina though. Like, was it like a sock full of Vaseline? Like, and how do you not know?
I don't.
And where was it?
The how do you not know is because they didn't want to. Again, if they knew that he was dressing this way and paid for him to dress this way, then they already knew.
I mean, I know that you can engage in Congress facing each other. You just got to tilt back a little more. But that, I feel like they would know that. Maybe they won't. Maybe they don't know that's a different hole. I don't know.
Willful ignorance? I don't know.
Willful ignorance. Yeah. I mean, we got a whole movie. We got several movies about dudes trying to have sex with pie. So, not very discerning.
No.
But I love that they was robbing dudes. That's awesome. Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm all for it. Okay, so on that, I think that's a great way to end the show is with Mary Jones. Hats off to Mary Jones. And again, like I said, even though they were a late add to the show, I stand by them.
Yeah,
I stand by them and everything they stood for and everything they wanted to do.
Viva la
Thank you for making our show a little bit more inclusive of the LGBTQ community.
Indeed. Indeed. All right.
Anybody? So with that, we will wrap it up. We're going to try and stay right under this 90-minute mark. And don't forget, next month we'll be doing women, and we're going to be doing the rabble rouses of women for Women's History Month.
Indeed.
Yes. And go read Asada, go read Black AF History, go read Stamp from the Beginning, go read the 1619 Project, and you'll get like us.
Absolutely.
All right. You're very welcome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it cedar lands, without any type of payment and no signing off, called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell